What a pogue. You didn't even see combat? Man, you weren't even airborne. Unbelievable. What were you, like a cook? A cook in the army? Or were you a clerk typist? What did you do? Man, that's pathetic. You ever hear shit like that? You know, I've been scrolling through YouTube for a long time, and invariably I end up, because of the algorithms, I suppose, I end up on stolen valor videos, and I watch them. I like, of course, my favorite is Don Shipley, the guy that outs fake Navy SEALs. But there's a lot of different, in the veteran community on YouTube, there's a lot of different videos on stolen valor. I was just watching Kennedy's apology. Um, you know, I think he said he got the Bronze Star and all this other bullshit. Uh, Talking about the MMA fighter guy. And it just gets you thinking, man, because I've thought about this for a long time, and I've talked to young people, and I thought, you know what, man, I'll just pop on to hit my phone, and, you know, I get about 3 or 4 views every 6 months, and maybe somebody needs to see this or hear this, and it'll help them out. Look, no matter what you did in the military, you served in the military, and, you know, I'm not just, you know, patronizing you or trying to blow smoke up your ass. You really need to think about this. You have nothing to be ashamed of. And I'm not just sending this out here to make people feel good. I'm old enough now. I just turned 63 last week. I'm old enough now to understand how juvenile and meaningless some of the bickering that goes on in the military was when I was in. I was in 1980. So I was a paratrooper, 05 Bravo 1 Papa, which is an airborne field radio operator. Carried the old Prick 77 on my back at Fort Bragg. Never saw a shot fired in anger. How could I? There was no wars going on. And I remember for a long time, I felt kind of ripped off. I felt like somebody that had trained for the football, you know, game, trained for it, and then sat on the bench and never got called into the game. And I felt like life had ripped me off. And then I got older, and of course I did a career with LAPD and then 12 years as a federal agent in DC. And, you know, with my LAPD time, you know, you see what death looks and smells and feels like, and you experience that shit. And I slowly realized how fortunate I was not to have seen combat. And, you know, then I went on to lose a couple of friends in Afghanistan. And then I had a son that served in Afghanistan in the Army on a striker unit, another son that served in the Air Force. And you realize, man, you want to avoid that shit at all costs. Thank God we have warfighters that are willing to get up there and go toe-to-toe with the enemy. I love and respect them. But here's the deal. I love and respect all of you that signed a contract and your life was the balance, and you went and you served your country. You know, it doesn't matter what your job was. I don't know the figures, but I read years ago about how many individuals it takes to support each guy who's toe-to-toe with the enemy, each infantry dude. I mean, think of the logistics, the guys that put gas in the vehicles. I say trucks because I'm from another era. The Humvees, you know, people that are typing up the paychecks. They don't do that anymore. Probably it's all computerized. But you get what I'm saying. There's all the things that go into issuing somebody's boots and their uniforms, their fatigues, to get them out there and transport them and make sure that the generators are working and to blah 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 and to keep track of all the equipment and the arms rooms guys and every single person, all the medical personnel. You know, if somebody is literally sitting at a desk and just keeping track of who comes and goes, you know, that's like a facility security position, I would imagine. That all has to happen, and it's all honorable. There's no reason to feel bad about your MOS, your time in the service. There's no reason to embellish, you know. And as much as I hate, you know, I know people that lie about their military career. I know people that don't know that I know that they're lying about their military career. But it's a shame. It really is. There's no need for it. You got everybody, not everybody, a lot of these guys, they feel like they somehow are less. So they exaggerate and they talk about being under mortar fire or, pulling bodies out of, and it just never happened, you know. I know one guy that claims to be a Navy SEAL, and I know for a fact he wasn't a Navy SEAL. No, for a fact. How do I know? Because I had Don Shipley verify it on the SEAL database. But I've got other friends that do the same shit. They proudly served. They were in the military. They went overseas, and they didn't see any combat. But they somehow have to talk about incoming mortar rounds and the seeing the dead bodies and how that affects them, and it just didn't happen. And there's no need for it. The military was the best. It was the best choice that I ever made. It got me exactly where I am today, and I have no complaints. Everything that I have good in my life can be traced right back to the decision to sign those papers. So if you're considering joining the military, I see a lot of that on TikTok. Hey, I'm thinking about joining the Army. I leave for basic training next week. The advice to those that are getting ready to go, take a lot of pictures. Now, that's a lot easier because you got phones with cameras. In my day, we had to have these big-ass cameras that would hang in my shirt tied to a bootlace. And I irritated the hell out of everybody because I was always the dude taking pictures. And now here we are, a bunch of old men, and we just went to our reunion last year. And I'm like the only dude that has pictures of these guys. And they can't thank me enough. Oh, my God, my family's never seen me in uniform, or blah, blah, blah. Or I remember these guys and this one. For such a short period, unless you make the military your career. I mean, I did 3 years active duty. I did a couple of years reserve. And for such a short period of time, I'm here to tell you as an old guy that the older you get, the more important those times become. And you realize that you didn't know it at the time. You were living the best years of your life. And the time goes by very fast. I used to hear that and think, yeah, right. Well, it is true. It goes by very fast. And when you are old and broken and you're sitting around and I can't imagine people my age that sit around and have nothing to look back on. I have unbelievable constant pain because of the damage I've done to my body by living a hard, fast, and furious life. But it was kind of worth it when I think back on. I've got some really cool memories, man. Unbelievable memories. Coming from Inglewood and Hawthorne, California, raised in poverty, never been on an airplane in my life, never left LA. And suddenly the second time I'm on an airplane, I'm jumping out of it in jump school. I'm standing at the base of the Great Pyramids in Egypt during Operation Bright Star in 1982 or 81. I think it was 82. 81. Stationed in 2 different places in West Germany, and then traveling to France and all these different, all of that stuff, when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. And the friends I made and the experiences I had and the dumb shit that I did. For you guys that are considering going in, man, soak up every memory, live your life and enjoy it. And never let somebody make you feel bad, because you're not a Delta Force operator or a Navy SEAL or Marine Force Recon or Airborne or Air Force Pararescue. God bless those guys. I watch all their videos, man. I love them. They're my heroes. I wish I would have done that. There's a lot of reasons, and they're not excuses, but look, not everybody is cut out to do those things. Not everybody should do those things. I remember I did I think they call it Op 4 now, but back in those days, we were, the indigenous people in this fictitious thing. We worked with special forces at Fort Bragg in their final phase of, training. And we were the fictitious country that, militia that they had to come in and train, and we spent a lot of time in the woods with them. So I got to know these guys. Really cool guys. Didn't do anything special forces, just was the guy that they were training, and it was just awesome. Very cool experience. What the hell was it called? It was called, that's right on the tip of my tongue, Robin Sage. So, that was such an experience. But I had at the time quite a few of those guys that got to know me and were like, man, Mike, you need to go special forces. You'd be perfect for it. First of all, they had no idea that I couldn't navigate my way out of a map factory. I don't know what it is, but my sense of direction is all fucked up. But that aside, I remember telling them, hey, look, man, my reason for joining the Army was to take up these 3 years so that I'll be old enough to become a cop. I want to be LAPD. That was my dream. But if they don't hire me within a year, I'll come back and maybe I'll do it. Because I thought if I'm going to go special forces, I'm going to make it a career. But I kind of digress here. My message is to those of you in non-combat roles, non-kinetic roles, people that are, working in an office environment. You are representing your country. You're wearing your country's uniform. You have everything to be proud of and nothing to be ashamed of. When I was young, there was, and I'm sure it still exists, but there was always this kind of fun little battle between the branches. We always said that what the hell I can't probably say it on YouTube, but the Navy attracted a certain kind of people, and they lived a life that nobody understood in terms of like they had it easy. The Air Force was the chair force, and those were for the like really smart guys that couldn't beat their way out of a wet paper bag. The Marines for the crayon eaters, the real dumb guys, and the Army, of course, was number one because I was in the Army. And so we had a lot of that banter back and forth with the different branches. And funny story, one day I took my first military hop from Cherry Point, South Carolina, to El Toro Marine Base to go see my father, who lived in San Clemente, California. And I end up in full uniform. I had the khakis on at the time and the beret and the jump boots. I ended up the only Army dude on a plane loaded with Marines. So you can imagine what a fun flight that was, and some pretty cool stories actually came out of that flight. But yeah, so that was like karma coming back to haunt me. But yeah, I don't tell people that I saw combat in the military. I didn't. I always joke around and say, I got the 10-foot stare from the Cold War, or I fought in the European theater. It was the off-post theater when I was watching Star Wars, or whatever the hell stupid lines I make. But, when you look yourself in the mirror, no matter what you did for your country, you signed a contract and gave your body and your mind and your time to your country for a very good purpose. And you need to be very proud of that. If you cooked food, how are the soldiers and the sailors, Marines, Air Force, how are they going to eat if nobody's preparing their food? That is a huge fucking part of the military. That's an important role. You're keeping the machine going. And that the same goes for any MOS that you can think of. It's necessary or they wouldn't have it. So anyways, if you got something out of that, leave a message. If you know somebody that needs to hear it, send it to them. Obviously I don't have a big channel anymore. My primary one was shut down because of the whole COVID thing, and I had the audacity to speak my mind. So I lost that channel, and now this is just sort of, I make a video here and there whenever I feel like it. Even when I had a ton of subscribers, I didn't monetize. I'm not in it for that. I'm in it to communicate to people. So if you got something out of it, let me know. And yeah, like and subscribe. My videos are all over the map. So the next one may be about whether or not fish drink when they're swimming underwater. Where else are they going to swim, Mike? Yeah, see, that's the kind of shit that you're going to see here. So anyways, hope everybody's doing well. Stay safe, and yeah.